From an individual perspective, it's also how I think about myself when I think about work. And my mindset about work is going to inform how I show up.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the World of Work podcast of the WOW. Today, we talk about the complex world of people, the complex world of emotions at work. And as my guest speaker, Roxana, was just saying now, it does matter how we show up at work, what's our mindset, because whether we like it or not, guys, we do bring our whole selves to work. So let me give you a quick introduction on my guest speaker, Roxana. She is a psychologist and a consultant with a master's degree in psychology and advanced training in cognitive behavior psychotherapy. She also does a lot of consulting in the area of transformational coaching. Roxana is originally from Romania, from Transylvania to be exact. That is correct, the land of the vampires, but she is everything but a vampire. She is a wonderful professional, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy listening to her as much as I enjoyed talking to her. With no further ado, let's tune in.
I think my world of work has always been around people and revolved around people. But whenever I talk about work now, I always like to first share a bit about why I do what I do, because I think it's, the driver behind everything. And I also think our beliefs hold so much power. So I think I am a big believer in people, but more than that, I believe in this world in which we treat each other with more kindness, respect, and care. And in an ideal world where the majority of people feel connected and have meaning in their lives and are satisfied with the work that they do. So I think over the course of my, working life, 10 plus years or so, I've always tried to think about how can I actually contribute to building this world. So in the beginning, it was more, launch into psychology and psychotherapy and providing those services, and also building initiatives around mental health and mental health awareness in the NGO that I founded and led. And now, more recently, in the past years, is more around individual coaching, but also working with teams and leaders and organizations. And it's more about providing learning experiences, training workshops, and also building leadership and employee programs around psychological safety, well-being, and what I like to call essential human skills, the soft skills that are now more recognized as the power skills that we need in the workplace. I think throughout that, the constant has been people, and I think supporting people is at the core of who I am. So that's my big driver behind my work.
Oh, that's a beautiful driver, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you.
It really is, because it's only through people, with people, that first of all, even our lives have meaning, because we're greatly defined by our relationships with others, and then that we get stuff done, and hopefully good stuff. And what I'm always fascinated about our business, let's say the people business, which is, it's fascination but frustration, to be very honest with you, which is, how can it be that, my background, X number of years as well, and more on the HR people business, really business side of business, but more recently as well, closer to the individuals as such, but how come after so many years, 25 plus years, we're still talking about certain topics that, for example, leadership, how to build, collaborative teams, and how to get the best from people without imposing what the best looks like, but being able to really leverage people's potential, and how to build, organizations that are also good places to work, and it's fascinating, because to me it seems like, are we really moving forward, and if yes, in which direction, and what are the trends as well that we're seeing in the workplace when it comes to leadership, when it comes to teams, when it comes to well-being. I do think the well-being is a relatively newer topic, but I'd love to hear from you how you've seen in your different capacities, and in your own journey, like, have you seen, what kind of change have you seen in the way people and individuals perceive work. And on the other side as well, how companies are changing or not changing their way of seeing work.
Okay, so it's a big question, right?
It
So
is,
maybe
it is. You know me, I start big, but feel free to chunk it up any way that makes
the entire world of work and the change within it. Well, I mean, I think it's starting from an individual perspective. I think it's quite interesting. I always like to refer to what was before. So if I think about my parents and the generation of my parents, they had maybe one or two workplaces throughout their whole working life, right? So 30, 40 years, you worked maybe in the same place. You wanted to be there. You had the stability. Everything was quite clear. And unless something went horribly wrong, you had that clarity that I'm going to be here with these people and everything's fine. And that was my world of work. And now what we're experiencing is a lot of change and a lot of different perspectives. I think we don't necessarily want to be in the same place for so many years because there's a lot of learning and growing that maybe cannot happen in just one, place when we stay and work. But at the same time, so this is kind of like how it's moving in the direction of the trends, right? But also companies are becoming more unpredictable in terms of, are we staying in the market, the changes that we have to do, how do we pivot, all the transformations that happen in a company as well. So there's a lot of factors that we're looking at and we're trying to understand. I think it's still an evolving process. But from an individual perspective, it's also how I think about myself when I think about work. And my mindset about work is going to inform how I show up. And sometimes we tend to be in these, extremes because we do function based on quick analysis and putting things into boxes and predicting danger. That's how we do it. So a lot of the times we can find this kind of mindset of my identity is my work. So that means my value as a human being is decided by how I perform my work and what role I have or job I have. And the consequences of that can be very, very massive in our lives. So I might tend to, have perfectionism and I want to do everything right and correct and on time. I might tend to have difficulties in saying no. And that means I take a lot on and then can become quite stressful. And I might have difficulty navigating when I make mistakes, when I have a setback, when I receive maybe negative feedback, right, from or constructive feedback, because I'm wanting to do everything right because it depends on how I view myself. And so the consequences of that can be quite, towards stress, maybe even burnout. We know that's a big problem right now. And on the other extreme, we might have the other perspective that says, well, I'm only doing this job for the benefits, right? Whatever that might look like. So money, perks, title, whatever it is. And that can also mean that I'm not really so involved. So I'm missing out of all the good things that we can get out of work, right? Connection, as you mentioned, building relationships with others, showing up for my team, or lending an extra hand when we need that. But also I might not be developing my creative side so much because if I'm not really committed and loyal and engaged, I might not want to innovate or find new solutions or give my best at work. And so I think the big question is, how do we maybe move towards the middle ground when we think about, I want to be doing this work, right? I want to be here and thinking about how I can connect with others and find meaning and be satisfied and make an impact. But also I want to be the human that I am. And I think it goes a long way to thinking about what's important for me in the workplace and how do I show up and how does my mindset and perspective inform that?
Now it was a loaded question, and wow, what a loaded answers. It was really intense. There's a lot to unpack there too.
Yeah,
I sense.
for sure.
What you're saying makes me kind of think in terms of time. So when you were talking about your parents or the past, if we look into the past and what the meaning of work used to be in the past, it is the sense, first of all, of it's something you have to do. You're obliged to do. It's your duty. It's normal. It's not even questionable. It is your income. It's your security. It gives you that stability, right? It gives you the ability to forecast, to plan, to set up a family, to buy a
Mm.
house to da da da. It was just part of that conveyor belt of of what life used to be like. You go to school, you get married, you get go to work, and you retire. You've got grandchildren and lots of stuff in between, of course. But these other considerations that you're making in terms of the mindset, in terms of work equals identity or only job pay, etc., I would say this thinking about work
Mhm.
in different ways, or even questioning what work is probably the result of our more contemporary modern life, right? Made of, to a certain extent, comfort, convenience, to a certain extent, luxury, to a certain extent, right? I mean, our Western civilization, we allow ourselves, and we can ask ourselves these questions. And in some parts of the world, people can't, right? They just have to continue to. So there's that component, and also to your point, there's this external aspect that anyway it's less predictable than what it used to be in the first place. So of course people need to, whether they like it or not, start thinking in terms of, well, what's my mindset regarding work, right? um, and so when you were talking about those two spectrums, if you will, those two well, they're not extremes, but those two
Mhm.
ends of the spectrum of work equals my identity. I give my all, to the other one, work is a job, 9 to 5. It is what it is, and I just don't necessarily show up to my full. Don't you think that these things can actually coexist in the same individual depending on where you are in your work life journey? I.e., that when you start off, perhaps out of necessity, you accept whatever is available to you because you need a job and you need to finance your life, and that may not be that you want to show up fully to it, because that might not yet be that sense of realization of saying, oh, this is it for me, kind of thing. um, or it may be this is it for me kind of thing in the beginning, but then slowly but surely it may fade into, oh, okay, I've seen it before, it's just a job. So like, how do we give people a sense of, hey, it's neither one or, it actually could be a spectrum and a flow as you're moving through that work life journey, if that makes sense. Have you seen
Mhm.
that transformation in people as well, as in your capacity as in the not psycho psychotherapy and the clinical, and in supporting individuals? I mean, um because there's a risk of continuing to fragment our brains in a binary way, either
Mhm.
or, as opposed to it's a fluid, perhaps, process people may go through.
Mhm. I think, yeah, there's a very important distinction of where am I now? And I think context plays a huge amount of impact here, because it's not people in general or this person in general, it's more about where I'm at right now. But I honestly am a firm believer in no matter what job we're in right now, we can still find some meaning or value or purpose in it. Because it's not about the work itself, it's about the human doing the work. So even if I'm doing something that I'm not particularly enjoying, I think a big, powerful strategy is actually to think, how can I bring myself as a human being to this job and not just the work itself? And here, as you said, we have the luxury to reflect a bit more and check in with ourselves and see how we're navigating the world of work. Because if I realize, okay, I might not like this job very much, but one of my values is connection and relationships. How can I bring that value to work? And so maybe I don't focus as much on the tasks that I don't enjoy so much, but I focus more on networking and building relationships and having a support system that's there for me when I need it, and learning from others. And maybe in that way, understanding other people's roles and how can I maybe make different choices in the future if I want to go in a different direction. Or if one of my values is curiosity, how can I bring that to work? The tasks that I maybe even don't like. So, how can I transform maybe mundane or boring tasks by just thinking about how can I be curious about this? Or why is this so annoying to me right now? Because some tasks are annoying to us. What's happening there that there's this disconnect? And what can I learn about myself when I'm doing this work, no matter what work it is? So I think it's more about how do I bring my whole self to work in the sense of understanding what's important to me as a person, what my values are, and how do I let those drive me in the workplace, what I do. And of course, it's easier to do that when we have jobs and roles that resonate with what we are super passionate about, and it's harder to do it when we don't. But the challenge is still there because I want to like my work or at least big parts of it, right? So I think individually the effort is really worth it.
I love what you're saying because I really think this is one of the greatest paradigm shifts that each and every single individual, going back to context, needs to embrace, which is moving away from this dichotomy, right, of work is the task. I mean, it is a task, but it's performing activities, but it is the individual that's performing activities, whatever those activities may be. And so the way you're performing those activities, relating to others, is an expression of who you are. It is a manifestation of who you are, what your values are, how you relate to others. You know, are you a pleasant person? Yes or no? Are you somebody people want to work with? Yes or no? Maybe you might not even enjoy performing that task. But to move away from this illusion that, well, okay, I mean, I'm just here as because it's a very mechanistic vision of work. And I think this is one of the heritages we still have from the first industrial revolution, or when work has been segmented into these almost, performing tasks that are just from A to B without looking into, well, wait a second, there's a human that's performing it. And whatever you perform, you inform, and you meaning if you're hired to the same job as I am, but we'll be performing it very, very differently. So just that is the proof that who we are influences what we do, how we relate, how we grow. And so how would you recommend, or in your practice when you're coaching individuals, what are some techniques or tips, or how can you help people move in this way of, well, those who already think that way, it's great, right? But like even those who may operate that way, there are setbacks, there are moments in your life where you start questioning anyway, doubting. So what would you recommend people do to be mindful of the fact that performing tasks is actually a manifestation of who you are as well as an individual, not only what you're capable of, but how you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that question because it does show up a lot in the discussions that I have. And I think it all starts with this self-awareness and honesty moment. So actually, a lot of the times we might think, okay, I'm not where I would like to be in my career, or I'm doing things that I don't like, and I have a lot of negative emotions in regard to the tasks that I'm having to perform, right? And I think a lot of the times the moment to just sit with ourselves and understand what's going on. Because it's true, sometimes we make decisions because things happen, and from one decision you go to the next, and you're kind of like moving robotically, mechanically through life, and that's, you end up in a point and then you're unhappy or it's dissatisfied, and then that's a reflection point. But a lot of the times it's actually just understanding what's important to me as a person, because it's more about what are my values? How do I actually want to live my life? And considering that work makes such a big chunk of our lives, how do I actually do that as well? How do I bring what matters to me and what's important to me in the way that I do my work? And then how do I think about work? And then how do I manage my emotions at work? I think a lot of the times we underestimate the huge role that emotions have in our work life. And whether it is us with interacting with tasks or interacting with others, with colleagues or customers, however we're working, I think understanding a lot of the times, what's going on with me on the inside, my thoughts, my perspectives, my beliefs, then my emotions, and then my behaviors, just gives us so much power. Because we have room to navigate. If I know, okay, I'm frustrated because this task makes me feel like I'm undervalued, right? It's below what I am capable of doing, and it's a repetitive, boring task. It makes me feel undervalued, and maybe I feel angry, and then I lash out. Okay, the way I'm feeling and thinking and responding, is it aligned with who I am as a person and who I want to be? And how can I navigate that internal world so that I make decisions and behaviors that lead me to where I want to go? If I don't want to be doing this task, how can I communicate that? If I'm communicating it from a place of anger, it might not come across, and it might not go aligned with the goal that I want to have, to do less of these boring tasks. So it's more about, I think the starting point is definitely understanding who I am as a person, what's important to me, how does my internal world look like, thoughts, emotions, behaviors. And then based on that, how do I, develop or exercise skills that help me get to my goals that are aligned with my values? So whether it's either communication, collaboration, leadership, organizational skills, whatever I need to kind of supplement that to get where I want to go. And also, of course, reflecting a lot. I think it's this idea of checking in as often as we can, noticing what's going on with us, and trying to pay attention to what's there. Because if we don't know what's going on with us, we cannot really make changes. So it's more about having informed decisions, right?
That is absolutely correct. I kind of felt like I was in a therapy session with her. I don't know about you, but it was very refreshing, I must admit. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. This is the end of part 1. Do tune in to part 2 that's going to be coming out very soon. Until the next time, as always, make sure you do take wonderful care of yourself and of others. Take care.